Imagine waking up every morning at the age of 104 and still remembering every birthday in your family. Still finishing crossword puzzles. Still recalling the name of your third-grade teacher, the smell of your mother's kitchen, the words to songs from 70 years ago. That is not fiction. That is the reality for a small but growing number of supercentenarians, people who live past 100 with their minds almost completely intact. And when researchers sat down with them and asked, "What's your secret?" one of the most consistent answers wasn't about medicine or genetics or even exercise. It was food, or more precisely, what they refused to eat. Today, we're going to go deep into that question. What do people with exceptional longevity and razor-sharp memories consistently avoid? What does modern neuroscience say about food and brain aging? And what can you and I start doing right now to protect our own minds for decades to come? Stay with me. This might be the most important video you watch this year. Before we talk about what not to eat, let's understand what actually happens to the brain as we age. Because once you see this, the food connection becomes impossible to ignore. The human brain contains roughly 86 billion neurons. These neurons communicate through synapses, tiny electrical and chemical signals that fire constantly, keeping you sharp, focused, and able to form memories. As we age, a few dangerous things begin to happen. First, chronic low-grade inflammation begins to affect the brain. Researchers call this neuroinflammation, and it's now considered one of the primary drivers of cognitive decline. It slowly damages neurons, reduces synaptic connections, and creates an environment where diseases like Alzheimer's can take root. Second, something called oxidative stress increases. Free radicals, unstable molecules produced by normal metabolism but accelerated by poor diet, begin attacking brain cells at a rate the body can no longer keep up with. Third, the blood-brain barrier, a protective wall that keeps harmful substances out of your brain, begins to weaken with age. When it's compromised, inflammatory molecules flood in more easily. Here's the critical point. All three of these processes are powerfully influenced by what you eat. Food is not just fuel. It is information. Every bite you take sends signals to your cells, your immune system, and your brain chemistry. The wrong foods accelerate neuroinflammation, increase oxidative stress, and damage the blood-brain barrier. The right foods, or rather, avoiding the wrong ones, can slow all three processes dramatically. This is why what 104-year-olds don't eat matters so much. They have, consciously or not, removed the most damaging inputs from their diet. And the result speaks for itself. The first and most important category that people with exceptional cognitive longevity tend to avoid, sometimes entirely, is ultra-processed food. Now, processed food is a broad term, so let's be precise. We're not talking about canned tomatoes or frozen vegetables. We're talking about products engineered in laboratories to be hyper-palatable. Items that have been stripped of their natural nutrients and rebuilt with artificial flavors, synthetic preservatives, emulsifiers, stabilizers, and seed oils. Think packaged cookies and cakes, frozen meals with a 40 ingredient list, flavored chips, instant noodles, breakfast cereals coated in sugar, most fast food. A landmark study published in JAMA Neurology found that people who consume the highest amounts of ultra-processed food showed significantly faster cognitive decline over time compared to those who consumed the least. And more recent research from Brazil, one of the largest studies on this topic, involving over 10,000 adults, found that every 10% increase in calories from ultra-processed foods was associated with a measurable acceleration of cognitive aging. Why? Several reasons. Ultra-processed foods are typically loaded with refined carbohydrates and added sugars, which cause rapid blood sugar spikes and crashes. These fluctuations are damaging to the brain, which relies on a steady supply of glucose. Over time, chronic blood sugar volatility is linked to insulin resistance in the brain, a hallmark of early Alzheimer's disease. Some researchers now refer to Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes. These foods also contain industrial seed oils, like soybean oil, corn oil, and canola oil that are extremely high in omega-6 fatty acids. While the body needs some omega-6, the modern Western diet contains a ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 that is dangerously skewed. This imbalance is directly pro-inflammatory, and chronic inflammation in the brain accelerates neurodegeneration. Finally, ultra-processed foods are virtually devoid of polyphenols, fiber, and antioxidants, the very compounds that protect neurons from oxidative damage. People who lived to 104 with sharp minds almost universally grew up in an era before ultra-processed food dominated the landscape, and many of them still cook simple, whole foods today. That consistency over a lifetime appears to be one of the most powerful protectors of cognitive function. The second category that centenarians with sharp minds consistently avoid is excessive added sugar, particularly in the form of high fructose corn syrup, which is found in sodas, sweetened beverages, condiments, sauces, and thousands of packaged goods. Let's talk about what sugar does to the brain specifically. When you consume large amounts of sugar, your pancreas releases insulin to move glucose into cells, but the brain is insulin sensitive in a unique way. Over time, chronically high sugar consumption leads to a state where brain cells become resistant to insulin. When that happens, neurons can no longer efficiently absorb the glucose they need to function. The result is cognitive fog, memory lapses, and in more severe cases, the kind of progressive neurodegeneration we see in Alzheimer's disease. A study published in Alzheimer's and Dementia found a strong association between higher blood sugar levels and smaller hippocampal volume. The hippocampus being the brain region most critical for memory formation. High fructose corn syrup is especially problematic. Unlike regular glucose, fructose is metabolized primarily in the liver and has been shown in animal studies to impair synaptic plasticity, the brain's ability to strengthen connections between neurons, which is the physical basis of learning and memory. Now here's something fascinating. Most supercentenarians, when asked about their relationship with sweets, don't say they never eat them. Some enjoy a small piece of dark chocolate or a piece of fruit. What they don't do is drink their sugar, no sodas, no sweetened juices, no energy drinks, and they don't eat sweet things multiple times a day as a default habit. The key word is excess. The brain can handle natural, occasional sugar. What it cannot handle without long-term consequence is the relentless, daily flood of added sugars that characterizes the modern diet. The third category is trans fats, and while partially hydrogenated oils have been largely removed from the food supply in some countries, they still lurk in certain fried foods, some baked goods, and imported products. Trans fats are notorious for their cardiovascular effects, raising bad cholesterol and lowering good cholesterol. But their effects on the brain are just as serious, if not more so. Research published in Neurology found that individuals with the highest levels of trans fat in their blood had significantly worse memory performance than those with lower levels. A major study out of UC San Diego found that men who consumed more trans fats recalled fewer words on memory tests. A straightforward and sobering finding. The mechanism. Trans fats appear to increase markers of neuroinflammation and may interfere with the production of DHA, the omega-3 fatty acid that makes up a significant portion of the brain's structure. Your brain is roughly 60% fat, and DHA is one of its most important building blocks. Anything that disrupts DHA metabolism is a direct threat to brain health. Now, it's important to distinguish between different kinds of saturated fats. The saturated fats found in grass-fed dairy, coconut oil, and pasture-raised meats appear to behave differently in the body than those found in processed meats and fast food. The research on this is nuanced, and we're not saying all saturated fat is evil, but the concentrated trans fats and the poor quality fats found in industrial fried foods, those are the ones that long-lived, sharp-minded people seem to instinctively avoid. Many centenarians, when asked about their cooking habits, described using olive oil, butter from local farms, or animal fats that were part of traditional cooking. not the industrial oils that came to dominate the 20th and 21st centuries. This one surprises people because there's a popular narrative, the French paradox, the Mediterranean lifestyle, that a glass of red wine a day is good for you. And the research on this is genuinely more complicated than the headlines suggest. What we do know is this: alcohol is a neurotoxin. Full stop. Even moderate drinking causes measurable brain changes. A large-scale Oxford study using data from over 25,000 people found that there is no safe level of alcohol when it comes to brain health. Even light drinking was associated with reduced gray matter density. The brain regions most vulnerable to alcohol damage include the hippocampus, again, your memory center, and the prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision-making, judgment, and working memory. Chronic alcohol use shrinks these regions over time. Now, many centenarians do occasionally drink a small amount of wine, particularly in Mediterranean or Southern European cultures, but the key words are small and occasional. Not a glass every night. Not multiple drinks on the weekend. A sip here and there, embedded in a social, food-rich context, very different from the drinking patterns of the average modern adult. If your goal is to protect your memory for decades, the honest message from neuroscience is this: less is genuinely better. The brain does not benefit from regular alcohol consumption. Whatever the resveratrol marketing may suggest, and many of the sharpest, longest-lived people in the world drink very little or not at all. The fifth thing that people with extraordinary cognitive longevity tend to avoid, or at least dramatically limit, is refined carbohydrates. White bread, white flour, pasta, white rice in large quantities, and all the pastries, crackers, and baked goods made from these. We already talked about how blood sugar instability harms the brain. Refined carbohydrates are among the most powerful drivers of blood sugar spikes because they've been stripped of the fiber and nutrients that would otherwise slow glucose absorption. Beyond blood sugar, refined carbohydrates contribute to what researchers call the glycation of brain proteins. When excess glucose binds to proteins in the body, including in the brain, it forms advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. These compounds are directly toxic to neurons and are found in high concentrations in the brains of Alzheimer's patients. There's also a gut-brain connection here that cannot be ignored. The gut microbiome. The trillions of bacteria living in your digestive tract communicates directly with the brain via the vagus nerve and through the production of neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. Refined carbohydrates feed the wrong kinds of gut bacteria, promoting dysbiosis, an imbalance that generates systemic inflammation, which then reaches the brain. Traditional diets, the diets of people who live long, sharp lives, are built on whole, unprocessed grains, legumes, vegetables, and fermented foods. They are not built on white flour, baked into 20 different shapes and sold in shiny packages. Now, it would be incomplete to only talk about what centenarians avoid without at least briefly mentioning what they tend to eat, because the two are connected. People who live past 100 with sharp minds tend to eat whole, minimally processed foods. They eat a lot of vegetables, especially leafy greens high in folate, vitamin K, and lutein, all of which are neuroprotective. They eat fish rich in omega-3 fatty acids that reduce neuroinflammation and support myelin, the insulation around nerve fibers. They eat legumes high in fiber, plant protein, and B vitamins crucial for brain chemistry. They eat fermented foods, supporting the gut-brain axis, and they eat olive oil, one of the most researched compounds for its brain-protective polyphenols. They also eat with intention and rhythm, regular meal times, not grazing all day long, and often with periods of natural fasting between meals, going 12 to 16 hours overnight without eating, even without calling it intermittent fasting. The pattern is consistent across blue zones, those regions of the world with the highest concentration of centenarians: Okinawa in Japan, Sardinia in Italy, Icaria in Greece, Loma Linda in California, and Nicoya in Costa Rica. Very different cultures, very similar dietary principles. There's a quote often attributed to Hippocrates, the father of medicine, that says, "Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food." Whether or not he actually said it, the wisdom holds. What you eat and what you choose not to eat is one of the most powerful levers you have over your cognitive future. You may not be 104 yet, but every day you are making decisions that your future self will live with. The brain you have at 80 or 90 or 104 is being built right now, one meal at a time. The people who reach extreme old age with their memories intact aren't doing something magical or exotic. They're simply avoiding the things that break the brain down and choosing consistently over decades the foods that keep it whole, that is within your reach, starting with the very next thing you eat. If this video gave you something to think about, please share it with someone you care about. Subscribe for more content on longevity, brain health, and the science of living well. And let us know in the comments, which of these 5 foods are you working on cutting back? See you in the next one.